I'm Sherilyn Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for working women who are ready to shine. Each week, I bring you ideas, inspiration, and insight on balance, business, and getting it all done gracefully. You ready? Let's be brilliant. This is episode 273 of the Brilliant Balance podcast. And today my guest is Lizzie Edwards. So we have been talking a lot in our coaching community, the women who I have as clients and get to work with one-on-one or in groups. A topic that has just been a really big theme this year is executive presence. So a while back, we had Liz Bruner on the show. If you heard that episode, and she talked a lot about how to telegraph executive presence. And one of the discussions that sort of ensued within the coaching community was we probably would love to hear from a stylist, someone who really understands how to help us dress in a way that projects the image that we're interested in projecting. Because I think by this stage in life, and a lot of the women I work with are in their 40s, some in their 50s, some in their 30s, but really sweet spot, I would say, in their 40s, where we are trying to get our arms around what is our style at this life stage, right? What is the message we're trying to send out into the world? What makes us feel good from the inside out and kind of elicits that confidence that we want when we stand and look in the mirror. And so I was especially delighted to find Lizzie Edwards. Lizzie is a UK-based stylist. She lives in London. And I cannot tell you how aligned her process is with the way that I think and the way that I coach. So I knew when I met her that she was the perfect person to bring to this community to talk about style and how to, in her words, look like the leader you are. Lizzie has a 7-step style strategy for ambitious women. That's also the title of her book, Look Like the Leader You Are, a 7-step style strategy for ambitious women. The initial book was published back in 2018, and she has just released a second edition. And I think she has really an uncanny knack for deconstructing how we can create the image that we want. So she has this British simplicity and sensibility that sort of cuts through the clutter that we all tend to accumulate in our wardrobes, trimming it back to the essentials, those pieces that can help us create a signature style. And so I really thought it was just great luck to cross paths with her and to be able to bring her to this community. You're going to hear her tell her story about how she ended up in this line of work. It was not a linear path to it, but I'm so glad that she did find herself in this work where she offers no nonsense advice and expertise on how to create a wearable, stylish wardrobe and dress for your personal brand with style. Again, Lizzie lives in North London with her husband and her dog, and she is just a delight and really a wealth of great advice and wisdom. In this episode, she also offers a free download of her book, a digital download of her book, which was incredibly generous, and it is linked for you in the show notes because the URL is a little bit of a mouthful. So just scroll into the show notes of this episode and you will be able to get the link to that digital download. All right, without further ado, here is my conversation with Lizzie Edwards. Lizzie, welcome to the Brilliant Balance Show. I am so delighted to have you here today.
I'm just so grateful that you asked me to come on. Thank you so much.
You are just exceptional. We were chatting for a few moments just before we started recording, and I can already tell how fun this is going to be for me, and I know it'll be fun for the listeners as well. So I'd love to start with this question because I think it grounds us that we're all just women out here doing our thing. Tell us a little bit about your day today. What's been on your schedule? What's coming up after this?
Well, today, obviously, we were talking before, we've got time zone differences going on. So I'm in London in the UK. And at the moment, as we're speaking, it's just gone 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So I've had a day. Mondays, I try and keep as an office day and just have one of those days where I catch up with my email. I've been doing a few admin tasks. I've had to do some tax and those kind of things. So it's been a bitty day, but I quite like Mondays just to find my feet, get a sense of what the week looks like. So it's been one of those days. And then after this, I'm going to take my dog for a walk. It might have just got dark, but I feel like I've had a day of context switching. So my brain's a little bit fried. So I'm ready to just go and have a walk outside with my dog.
See, I knew we were going to be twins because that is my absolute favorite self-regulation strategy is just get myself out there walking and I'm like back in one piece by the end of it. That's fantastic. So no surprise to our listeners who've just heard your introduction. You are a stylist by trade, but I'm curious, how did you become a stylist? What was your path to this work?
Wow. So quite a long one in that I had a long time before I started being a stylist of kind of not knowing what I wanted to do. And although people think that my previous life was quite linked to the life of a stylist, it kind of isn't really, but I'll explain a little bit. So I spent my youth, when I left school, I went to college to study fashion. And then I ended up being a fashion model for quite a number of years into my mid-20s. I didn't really have the best of time. This is like the early 90s. But by the end of that, I was almost desperate to just go and learn something. So I went to university and did a degree in communications. And I finished that and went and got what I would call, quote unquote, a proper job in the media industry, in advertising, commercials. And it just wasn't really for me. But I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And it's quite a hard sort of few years of just, I don't know if any of your listeners or, have been in this position, but when you just don't know what you want to do. And by this time I was in my early 30s and it was quite a hard time. And in the end, I worked with a career coach, and I am such a massive coaching fan. And I have had coaches almost on and off ever since, because this career coach literally helped me change my life, because she helped me uncover all of, I don't know, Steve Jobs talks about it in that speech that he did about the dots that joined up. And it's kind of, now looking back, people think it was obvious how I've ended up where I am. But at the time, it didn't feel obvious. But she, one of the passions was, I did like shopping, but I was more of a browser. Like, I like looking around. I love finding that thing, when you're like, oh my God, how amongst all of this nonsense in the shops is this amazing thing that I found. And actually, weirdly, I only came to this realization a couple of years ago that my modeling days actually helped me kind of build up this 10,000 hours that you hear about, because I had so much time to kill between appointments. I had go-sees and appointments in the centre of London, and I might get an appointment at sort of 10 a.m. and then not have another one till 4 p.m. And this is back in the early 90s. There was no mobile phone. You didn't have friends to meet up with. I'd just be killing time. And I'd killing time sometimes just wandering around the stores and looking at clothes and things like that. So although I had this, fashion teaching, when I did a BTEC in fashion, then I was a model, and then I had these hours browsing. And I also had a real personal development yearning as well, because I'd actually had quite a few challenges when I was a model. I'd ended up with an eating disorder. I'd had depression, and I got myself through that through a lot of reading, a lot of self-help books, actually.
Yes.
So I also had this part of me that was really interested in the self-development. I'd come across so many amazing things. So I wanted to help people as well. So when I worked with this career coach, she kind of gave me the challenge. And what I love about coaching is that kind of by next week, come back and we'll have done this thing.
Yes.
So it would be like, right, I want you to, the idea of becoming a personal shopper came up. So it's like, okay, by next week, I want you to have found sort of 5 guinea pig clients. And then you have to think, okay, well, how am I going to do that? Okay, let me ask friends of friends. So I did that, because that's what you do when you've got a coach. You do the things that you wouldn't make yourself do. So I had these guinea pig clients who I didn't know, but they were friends of friends of friends. And I then obviously in the next couple of weeks, I actually did those clients, or did a couple of them. And oh my God, I just, when you just know, it was like,
alive.
This is it.
Yes.
It was just, I loved it and I was good at it. And then it just snowballed, because then it's like, right, think of a name for your business and put up a website. And obviously, again, back in the days, there wasn't all the social media and everything. It was very simple. It was like, get a website up. So that was the ball rolling. And then I went and did, when I just thought, right, this is definitely what I want to do. I then thought, right, I want to train. I'm someone, if I'm going to do something, I really want to do it properly. So at the time, what was on offer in the UK wasn't really to my liking back then. It was very corporate image consulting. And that's just not where I was from in the background I was in. So I was much more interested in the idea of personal styling. So I came to the US and I actually trained with an amazing a style consultant called Brenda. First of all, with Brenda Kinsell, who sadly passed away last year, so she's no longer with us. And then I did further training with an amazing woman called Carla Mathis. So I got my training in America and then brought that back to the UK, and it just went from there. So that was in gosh, 2005 I started.
Okay.
So yeah, 17 years ago now.
So the 17-year overnight success, right? Like we all hear those stories. Everyone thinks, oh, in 5 minutes you have everything amassed, but 17 years of building this brand for yourself. And I love how you reference the Steve Jobs talk, because I really hear that as you're describing the sequence of events. You know, with the benefit of retrospect, you can see how it all ties together and sort of perfectly leads you to this work. But as you're living it, it doesn't feel that way. And I think so many of our listeners can probably relate to being in the middle of that story, trying to piece together, well, what could I do? You know, with the credibility. Clearly you were immediately credible, right? Because of your background as a model. I'm sure instantly everyone's like, oh, well, she'll know everything, right? Whether that's
which is
true
hilarious,
or not.
because actually it's actually probably the most irrelevant thing.
Because they dressed really, you.
Because
right.
And actually, you know, you've almost got there's nothing to do with you. And also the interesting thing is, well, that's the sort of styling that I'm totally not interested in. I'm not interested in fashion. Again, people find that quite strange. Right. It literally leaves me quite, I'm not interested in. I like finding an amazing kind of coat to walk my dog in, for example, is much more of a thrill to me than getting the lady. It's an interesting, I'm just not really interested in high fashion. But that idea of all of those different things coming together. And actually the other thing I have to say that often is so overlooked, and I'm sure it is in lots of industries, not just styling, but it's a people person job. You know, you could be having the most amazing taste, but if you haven't got rapport with people, then you just can't get out the blocks. And yet, let alone all the other things we need to do, be a web builder, a graphic designer, an accountant, all of your listeners who have their own businesses know that the thing you actually do that is the kind of label you probably do only 10% of the time. It's that, I have to be honest. I'm styling but is hardly
I think
anything.
This is a really important point, because you can hear it even in your voice, how you want to almost disassociate from that child. Like, that's not what my credibility is. And yet the front door credibility, the thing that makes people instantly say, I think she can do this, right? Is when people see you have a look together and they have that dot from your background. And I think a lot of us disavow some of the pieces of our background that we're like, but that's not the thing that makes me me. But if it does externally, it actually matters a little bit for branding. And I think that's really a dovetail with your work, which is, look, I'm not the sweater I'm wearing or the way my pants fit, but it is a part of that kind of immediate impression that people might gather. So I think it matters even when we want to disavow it, you know?
I totally agree. And also what I found interesting is that so many times I'd be with a client, and even up to recently, where, you know, and I haven't modeled, I'm 51. I was 2019, 2021 then. It's still a thing that people, once we're sitting down to have a sandwich at lunchtime, they'll go, so, you know, when you were a model, you know, because it's the thing that people are
they want to talk about it.
In. And
very sexy.
You know, it's an industry that people, it's very different now to how it was there. But yes, you're absolutely right. The things that are important and that they're all part of the jigsaw puzzle, aren't they? That make you you and make you unique, which again is why no one's really in competition with each other. We're all so different, doing the same on surface, the same job. But you know, again, particularly with styling, there's so many different stylists, all have different style.
Yes.
So, you know, you're going to be drawn to the person's background, but also the person's personal style.
Yes. Yes. And I think, you know, the career you have now, where you actually do personal styling for individuals, right? And you can work with them as a one-on-one consultant or as part of your group. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. It's interesting because you work with very ambitious women who are arguably very powerful in their professional lives, and yet they're so stressed out about what they're going to wear. Why is that? Why are powerful women so stressed out about clothes?
I think the main issue is time. I think you can be good at anything if you put the time into it. So this goes whether you want to be fit and healthy and be able to run a marathon, or whether you want to play the guitar, or whatever it is you want to do. There's no shortcut on kind of those 10,000 hours I was talking about. And I think for me, I genuinely believe that anyone can have a fantastic wardrobe and look good and it be authentic. The rub is whether they want to put the time into it or not.
Yes.
So, and this is obviously, again, what happens with life is you either put the time in or you pay someone to put the time in for you. But even if again, using the gym analogy, you can pay for a personal trainer, which definitely helps you be accountable, get it done, but they cannot do their push-ups for you. They can't run on the running machine for you. That the paying of the person to support your goal you still have to show up. And it's the same with the wardrobe. Like if I shop with a one-to-one client, they still have to come with me. However, the biggest part of that, the stress with the ambitious women in their wardrobes, I think often because they've got so many other things going on, often, again, not always, not everyone's the same, but it's the thing that seems unimportant until it becomes to get important because it's got out of hand or it's got sort of so bad.
It's getting in their way.
Like anything. Yeah.
Right.
If you keep maintenance up with anything, whether it's mowing your lawn, if you don't mow the lawn for 6 months, you've got to hire someone to come in and trim the whole thing and start again. And it's a bit like with the wardrobe. If you keep on top of things and you put a little bit of time in regularly, that's the thing. But a lot of women, when they're so busy, and I don't have children, but I see it amongst my friends and my clients, it's, they're very ambitious. They've got a busy world at work. Now the pandemic's over, maybe traveling again. So again, I say in my book, if you've got a lot of balls you're juggling, often the clothes and wardrobe is the ball that gets dropped.
Yes.
And again, one of my sort of sayings is you don't have the time, you have to make the time. And so often, the idea of being too busy for anything that we want to do in life, if it's important enough, we will make the time for it. Yes. So if it's really bothering you that much, you could just not spend an hour on that latest Netflix show and actually say, I'm going to spend an hour putting some outfits together.
Yeah.
But, again, and we do for the things we really bother about. So often my question is, how much are you bothered? Because when are you really bothered, you will do it.
And I think there are probably some mistakes that when I read your book, I heard you outline some mistakes that I think typically probably people are making when it comes to their wardrobe that is diminishing their image. You very much, from my read, ascribe to a less is more approach, right? Knowing yourself, having fewer things that you really love, that makes it simpler to kind of navigate your closet in the morning and get dressed. I think that approach is appealing because sometimes just the sheer amount of stuff that we have in our homes or in our closets, right? Or the amount of calendar activities we have in our lives, like we just have such a difficult time making choices. So can you just name a couple of the biggest mistakes you see people making that really diminish their image?
Well, I mean, these are kind of, the one that comes to my mind is almost before the actual clothes, which is actually just about being organized. I mean, again, I can only go from when I walk into people's closets who've hired me. And again, this is only a certain section. Some people are very organized anyway by nature, but often just having a disorganized wardrobe means that you're wasting that time in the morning just looking for stuff that you can't find. Just the mess of it. And at a very basic level, just having all your jeans in one place, having all your trousers together, having all your short sleeve shirts, then long sleeve shirts, whatever it is, whatever works for you. But sometimes I'll say, right, tell me about when I open the closet doors. Okay, just tell me a little bit about what's going on here. And some people, there's no.
You're like, I don't know what's going on here. That's why you're right.
So from the most basic level, having matching hangers, like this is the most simple thing that can often have the most profound effect. And people go, oh, come on, that's just ridiculous.
Oh, but that is a hot tip. I mean, just pause for a second on the velvet hangers with, the slimline velvet hangers.
Do you have those?
I do.
You have them before?
I do. And when I made that conversion a number of years ago, I first of all, nothing falls off the hanger anymore, right? All those little slippery sweaters that just want to fall right off. Like the concept of having those slimline hangers is a game changer. So that's definitely a hot tip. And then I am one of those weirdos who has everything organized. Like that's just kind of how I roll. But I think it is helpful to look at things that are color coded or, organized by grouped together in like items so that when you are trying to get dressed, you sort of have a vision for how do I want to feel today? And what's the image that I want to project? And which elements in here are going to help me kind of gather that look up? And I think one of the things I feel like I made mistakes about for a long time was just buying sort of from a happenstance approach. Like, oh, this looks good. And, but nothing really went together and fit together. And you talk about that in the book, how important it is that you sort of have things that work together. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, so I really, like you said before, I'm a much for a less is more approach. When I see people who, even if they don't have a lot of things, if they have lots of things that don't go together, it's just so hard.
Yes.
So for me, again, my process starts way before shopping with just getting really clear on what your aesthetic is. So again, a lot of people get hung up on what body shape am I, these kind of things. Whereas for me, that isn't the most important thing. Getting clear on what your aesthetic is the most important thing. And then really having a look at what your day requires and what your week requires and what your month requires. So for me, again, I work with lots of women from different industries whose days look very different. And often, especially again, post-pandemic, looking at what that week breaks down into, like how many days are very casual, how many days are smart casual, how many times are they going to need a dress for going onto a stage, or just really getting clear on what it is and looking at what the wardrobe looks like in relation to that and seeing where the gaps are. But then having the idea of having a signature style, so that and again, it can be quite flex depending on the personality. If somebody is someone who really wants the minimum fuss, isn't particularly interested in clothes, I would just say, look, have one or two what I call style formulas, where you go, right, I like it when I wear a silk shirt with a pair of slim fit trousers and a pointed flat, so something as simple as that. And then you just repeat that. So you might have a few of those trousers in different colors and a few of those blouses in different colors and a few of those shoes in different colors, and then already you've got 9 items and you can mix and match to a million different combinations. That's the most simplest form. And then you build on it. But the most important
so just pause for 1 second, because you dropped so much gold right there. And then it's so natural to you that you're going to skim right over it. So I want to double click on that. Just think about that for people listening, how simple this is. She said, if you look at yourself and you're like, I like how I look and feel in a silk blouse and a pair of slim trousers and a pointed flat. 3 of each of those gives you this, in colors that coordinate, fabrics that coordinate, gives you this combination of outfits that you can piece together and know I'm in a formula that's going to feel good for me virtually every day. I think we way overthink the numbers of things that we need in our wardrobe, right? So when I hear you say that, there's a little formula that people can grab onto at the simplest end. And obviously it gets embellished from there if you like to play with this, but the simplest end of maybe even having a few of those formulas that work for you. Are there others that come to mind right away where you're like, oh, this is another one that seems to work for lots of people?
Well, I mean, that's probably the most common one. And then just obviously the minute you've then put a couple of jackets into the mix there, maybe one of the kind of tweed or boucle ones with different colours in that mix again with your colour palette. I mean, you mentioned colour and I haven't mentioned yet that getting your colours done or just learning what they are on a very top level way, doesn't even have to be down to the subcategory of whether you're a soft autumn or just even generally, I'm warm and I'm light or I'm dark and I'm cool. Whatever. I mean, these terms might not mean anything to anyone, but those just on that level where you can actually have a palette that goes with each other. And what that means, and back to your point about saving time, when you walk in a store and you know what you're not looking for, you can just walk out again. You can just almost go, right, I know that I'm looking for these kind of tones. I can walk into a store and almost go, no. Oh, there it is. Again, when you're shopping with intention and you've decided that your signature style is, say, for example, again, someone's signature style could be a color palette, not even necessarily a style. So not just the slim trousers that go, I'm just going to wear navy trousers. Okay, so you might want a long wide leg. You might want a short crop slim leg. But when you walk in a store and you're just looking for navy trousers, you can just almost go, no. Yeah. And you just go into the dressing room with only navy trousers and you just concentrate on buying a few pairs until they're done, ticked off, and then you move on to the next item that you're looking for.
It's like instant curation, right? If you think about how a lot of us shop for groceries, I think we're very accustomed to doing, a lot of us, we know, okay, this is the brand of this that I buy, or this is the, I want the one with the high protein version of pasta or whatever.
Yeah.
And it helps you, if you really step back the next time you go to the grocery store and look at how many options are you immediately sort of riffing past because they're not for you. The same thing can be done in a clothing store, but we don't do it. Yeah,
we don't do it. It's funny because you say that, because Brenda Kinsell, again, my first mentor, she used to call it a style recipe, what I call a style formula. And it's a recipe. It's like you add this with this, and then you add a scarf, and then you put a jacket on, and then you've got this mix and match situation. But again, people overcomplicate it because there's no thought up front. And again, your analogy of just going to the supermarket and buying groceries for a recipe, I'm obviously not wired like you. I'm someone who with my food, I use a thing called Gusto where they give me the recipe and I cook it because I'm the sort of person that does walk into the supermarket without a list, and I do buy random things, and then I never really have a proper recipe and I waste food and I throw it away. Yes. So I'm almost buying Gusto to create that for me. But It's exactly right. If people shop for clothes in that way, where they wander in and then they're pulled by the item on the mannequin or the pretty thing with the color like magpies, whereas actually what they're missing is a plain white shirt, a plain pair of jeans, a white t-shirt. It's these really basic things.
Okay, my friends, I have some big news for you today. After years of dreaming about it and saying, how great would it be to have our very own Brilliant Balance boutique, we did it. And the online doors are open. So if you love the podcast and you'd love to start your day with a Brilliant Balance mug, or add a little inspo to your office art, or cozy up in a super soft hoodie and a hat for those late to the bus stop mornings, head over to brilliant-balance.com/shop and choose something that will remind you that you are brilliant, because you are. And then I want to see all the pictures of you with your new goodies. So tag me on social media at brilliant_balance when it arrives. That's brilliant-balance.com/shop. Go have some fun. Your guidance of saying, you really encourage the readers, like, stop responding to the sale emails and the text notifications from these retailers. And I think that is probably really important for us to spend a minute on, because it's like, oh, this looks beautiful on the person wearing it in the picture. And within 30 seconds, you can have that on its way to your house with Google Pay or Apple Pay. Very dangerous habit, because you end up with pieces that were not purchased with intention. And what I'm really hearing you talk about, and this is why I loved your work, Lizzie, it dovetails so beautifully with my own, is the intention sits at the root of this. There is a plan, there's a vision, you're steering toward it. And the pieces that you're buying for your wardrobe have to fit that vision and that intention, right? Just like if you've listened to my podcast for a long time, the things you choose to spend your time on need to fit your vision and your intention. And so it creates this sort of, divining rod of yes, no, as you're making choices. Very rarely will the sale email or text really match something you are purposefully looking for. It's going to be pretty rare, I would say, that process. Yes,
absolutely. And you're so right. And obviously for me, again, before people get to the shopping part of my process, which is, right down the steps, it's getting clear on your personal brand. So, knowing the values and qualities that you want to project with your image. And to your point about seeing something or having something arrive in your inbox and saying, oh, that's pretty, or that's nice, I'm going to buy that. When you know what you're trying to project, you can really clearly say, yeah, that is a nice dress, but it's not for me. And there's quite a difference of being able to look at your clothes that already you have in your wardrobe when you have a wardrobe review and saying, okay, that's what's not right about it. It's like, well, you kind of asserted that you want to look, a few words that I get you to pull out. And that dress is not saying that, or that outfit does not say that. So you can say, right, again, it's easy. It just narrows the field of what you're looking for.
Yeah. Or that black sweater is just like the 42 other black sweaters I already own. And really, I have no business buying another one unless I'm going to get rid of a bunch.
Unless you're replacing something. Yeah. Because again, in my process, I have this thing with a wardrobe review where you have a queue. And, when you've got the one that's your favorite, the one that's the second when your favorite's in the wash, and then you've got one by a bystander for when both of those are out of action, you kind of lose momentum as you go down the queue. So once things are in a queue, you can really cut the ends of the queue and just get rid of them. They're just never going to make it to the front of the queue. And again, one of my things I always say to my clients is there's only 7 days in the week. Like, when are you going to wear all this stuff? You're just not.
I know. And then we get so attached. I think some of the things that really get in people's way are sunk costs. Like, I know I spent money on this. or I loved it when I did, and just that inability to part with things that have sort of run their course. So you introduced this 7-step style strategy, and I want to give you the name of Lizzie's book is called Look Like the Leader You Are. It's a 2nd edition, just released. Absolutely stunning cover. Loved the cover of this. And so you have 7 steps. I want to just talk about the first few, and then people can get the rest of them in the book. So the first of the steps, they all start with R, is reflect. Can you share just top line? What does that step mean to you?
So reflect to me is just almost like, let's just stop for a minute and think about what we're doing here. Where am I right now? So the reflect step is, the first exercise is what's your why, which is like, if you're thinking about doing something with your wardrobe, you've picked up the book, it's obviously of interest to you. What's the bigger picture? And normally that's something like, I want to change career, I want a promotion, something around the wardrobe, or I want a wardrobe that I can look at and everything's in place and everything fits me. There's 2 looks. There's the look at your career, there's a look at your wardrobe. Because obviously the thing is, if we want to kind of make progress on any goal, knowing where we're headed is so important. That's what I believe. So just having that as a front of mind. Otherwise, we're not going to say no to that another sitting in front of another hour on a Netflix program or something, because we're going to have to make the time. Yes. Like I was saying before, you won't have the time. You have to make the time. So knowing why you're doing it. And
sort of the why part is reflect.
The why part is so important. And then the other part of the reflect step is just getting some clarity on who you are. So looking at the physical, actually looking in the mirror at yourself. Because again, a lot of women, when was the last time someone actually stood and looked at themselves in the mirror just to get a true, honest angle? There's also an exercise where I just say, you've got to measure yourself. Like, what size are you really? None of this guesstimating of, oh, when I go in the store, I kind of take in these couple of sizes. No, I don't really know what size you are, because people are under all sorts of illusions. And then there's obviously the exercise where I said before, where I get people to do an inspiration board, because that's where you get your style words from and your personal branding words. So it's really just this finding out who you are from the inside and the out right now. That's the first step.
Beautiful. And then the second step is review.
Yeah. And this is the one where you actually start with your clothes. So it's the first sort of interaction with clothes, where you get into your wardrobe and you start going through your wardrobe. And with the reason that in the reflect step is the idea of getting clear on your personal brand words is because you use those when you're clearing out your wardrobe. So that again, when you pull out this dress that you'd never wear and you're looking at it and you think, oh, it's a nice dress, but does it say these things? No, it doesn't. Okay, well, you can pass that off to your friend, you can give it to your sister, whatever, because it's a nice dress, it's just not for you. And it really helps clear the wardrobe. And that's that second step about reviewing, is just to help you go through your wardrobe and actually see, also spotting those things that don't fit you right now but will do soon, so you can just get them out of sight, out of mind for now. Because my biggest, again, helping women to be organized and get out the door in the morning without stress is to actually know that when they open the wardrobe in the morning, everything in
they like everything. Yes,
it's an option.
Yes,
it fits. It's right for the day, so they're not going through kind of summer dresses in the middle of winter, and they're not going through big woolly jumpers in the middle of the summer. It's like, what's ready for you right now is something that fits you, that the hem's not hanging down, the buttons aren't hanging off, it's not got bobbles on it, everything's ready. So that review process is just to go through everything and, have a pile for the things that are going to go to the in England we call them the charity shop. We've got things that might go just to the refuge centre, where they're going to just be recycled, things that need to go to the dry cleaners, things that need to get altered. So I talk again a lot about alterations, because so much of the impression we give people is in the way the clothes fit on our bodies. So getting things to, and again, often people, they just haven't taken the time to look in the mirror and say, does that fit me properly? Like
I think there's people who won't look in a full length mirror. I think that could actually be part of the problem, is if you're only looking at yourself sort of in a bathroom mirror from the waist up, you're missing that kind of net impression of how the whole outfit comes together. And then let's not even talk about how that's changed over Zoom, right? With this era that we've spent 2 years just living from the waist up. I think we've really kind of given up on a lot of this. So pulling outfits together with this review principle is, I think, something that sounds like a lot of work, Lizzie, and it might be a reason that people don't get started. And I would just say there's a lot of benefit on the other side of this piece of the process. Once you have the reflect work and you really take the time to do the review, there's some work in there. But boy, on the other side of that is freedom to get dressed faster and with more confidence. Yeah. And
if you're somebody who's got an overfull wardrobe and nothing to wear, this is so important. It's so important, because it's so cathartic. Because once you've got, it's like feng shui. Once you've got rid of that clutter, nature abhors a vacuum, everything starts moving.
Yes.
It's so important. And as you mentioned, the full length mirror, I say very categorically in the book, you absolutely must own a full length mirror. You cannot get dressed without one.
Yes.
It's so important. And, again, it might bring up things for people, but this is why this whole process is not really about the clothes. It's very much about you as a person. And if that's a challenge for you, then that's something that's worth looking at, because you can't really do anything with something that you're not seeing properly.
Yes.
Like if you're in denial about it. So
Well,
really looking at that.
I think you write with such compassion about that. Like, you understand that it can be challenging for women to take in their full impression. And yet, and I'm a big believer that our life should mostly be lived from the inside out, right? How do we feel in those clothes is as important as what do they look like. So I'm always talking about fit and fabric and feel, because for me, if things don't sit right and they're pulling wrong or the fabric's wrong, my whole energy is off kilter. And I think that's in your work, is not just what does it look like, but what does it feel like? Because that is so much of the brand we're going to telegraph, is how's it making us feel on the inside?
Absolutely. And going back to the point about having lots of things or having less things, is that for me, the less you have, the more you can invest in something that you really love. You don't need 5 jumpers if you can just buy one really lovely one that feels really good. You're going to have it for much longer. And again, one of the things I talk about a lot is quality. And I have to say that it doesn't mean that I'm only talking about spending money on very expensive brands. For me, it's just quality for me is something that will last a lot of wears, that will last a number of seasons, that you will enjoy for a long time, and that feels nice on. So that could, I have some amazing jackets from Zara that are quality, but they're still high street, but they're still good quality, and they've done the test of time, and they've definitely been fantastic on a cost per wear. But back to the clearing out the wardrobe, the review, it's so important just to have that clarity. And like you say, if it is overwhelming to, like when I do it with a client, I go there, we're doing it, I'm helping them in a number of hours. I might be there the whole day, half a day or a whole day. But if that's too much, one of the things I talk about in the book is just to take one section at a time. So even if the first thing you do is reorganize your clothes into order, so that you can then say, right, today I'm just going to do my black trousers.
Right.
And then another day you can break that off and you can go, today I'm just going to do my pants drawer, knicker drawer, you'd call it. So you can make it into chunks. The most important thing, if you decide to make it into chunks, that you keep it consistent so that those chunks are moved through quite quickly. So you say, right, I'm going to spend one little bit a day over the space of 3 weeks.
And what I hear you talking about is momentum, that, momentum begets momentum. So just getting started on this does sort of give you the energy to continue. And so that would be my encouragement to everyone listening is, this is a great time of year to be thinking about this. And so the opportunity to clear some things out, get them reorganized. And then I want to talk about one more R, which is rethink. So can you share a little bit about that one?
Yeah, so rethink is really just about my rethink section it's not a linear step really, because they're all things that you just need to be thinking about all the time. So one of the areas of rethink is just to be thinking about these personal branding words and how you're showing up and what they would look like. So once you've come up with your personal branding words, a lot of them in business are fairly similar. Obviously, professional comes up regularly, but what does that actually mean to you? And can you think of people who you would say, oh, they look professional, and what are the qualities in their clothing? And often it's things like, they look put together, their clothes look like they fit them properly, they look in good condition, those kind of things. So that's one of the areas. The other thing is obviously about putting outfits together, like learning about putting outfits together, having combinations that work for you, having them planned ahead of time. I'm trying to think what else is in my rethink section.
No, that's great. I mean, there's so much. I hope what everyone listening is taking away is the depth of wisdom here. When you find somebody who has made it their life's work to know kind of everything there is to know about a subject area, and then is willing to unpack that methodically and share it with you, like that is a massive time saver. And so crossing paths with you, Lizzie, it's like this book is the step-by-step guide to making it happen. A process that a lot of people are struggling to sort of find their way through on their own. And so I would just, my audience is time-starved. It's what I loved about your book is that there is a process here that can help you do this faster and with fewer mistakes and with less pain, right? It's not no time. Like you said, you have to put some time in, but your likelihood of success is much greater because there's a guide sort of behind the process. So that's a great place for you to tell us, where can people find your work online? And I understand you have something special for them today.
Yes, so online you can find me on, well, I have a YouTube channel, and my commitment for 2023 is that I'm going to be showing up there a lot more.
Awesome.
Because my marketing hasn't been so great over the years, but I actually do have a YouTube channel, which I started before the pandemic, and then it kind of went a little bit viral at one point. But you know, any of you who own your own business, you know, sometimes you're juggling all the things and you again, like, you drop the ball. So for me, my YouTube channel is definitely a place that you can find me, which is Lizzie Edwards UK is my, if you go into YouTube, and the same on Instagram is Lizzie Edwards UK. And again, I'm gonna be doing a lot more of that in 2023. I'm going to be doing reels because I like video. I really do like video, and so for me, doing that is kind of not that hard. For me, it's getting it out there and is the hard bit. But actually doing the videos, I've got so much to say. I've got so much content, obviously, with my book. Those are the places to find me. And my also my website is lizzieedwards.com. And on there as well is information about my one-to-one services and my style club, which is obviously the thing that I'm really passionate about now is my style club, because it is basically built on the back of my book. So obviously you said it is the blueprint, it's step by step. What I try to do is get what is it that I do with my clients? And if somebody was going to just do it themselves, how can I break it into a step-by-step process they can do it themselves? However, I know that unless people have got a lot of willpower, often the getting it done and the motivation that you talked about and the accountability, it's hard to keep going. So I started to Elevate, which is my style club, and the trainings in there are the kind of what's in the book. But with obviously the thing about the book as well is that there's no visuals, because there is some bonus content that is some visuals, but Elevate is more of that. So much more trainings about the detail of what I teach. But more importantly is the community. And I know that you've got a community. So the idea of other women who are in the same position, even if they've got different dress styles, and it's not even because it's not about the clothes. If you've got different industries, but they're all ambitious women, different ages, in the UK, in Europe, in Australia, in America, we've got members all over the world, but just having that accountability. So for example, you mentioned about the overwhelm of the wardrobe review, you know, so we do a wardrobe review together. So it's like in the diary, right? We're there, I'm on Zoom. Lizzie, what do you think of this jacket? You know, those kind of questions. I do a monthly style coaching where people come along and say, hey, I bought these trousers, but I'm not sure what length they need to be. Quite basic questions, but where do people go with those questions? Right. Or, you know, these are my style words, these are my personal branding words, and I'm in this industry, but I'm finding it hard to interpret what that looks like in clothes. Have you got some suggestions for brands I could look at? That's what the Style Club is for, to sort of support the book. So and the thing that I'm offering your listeners and anyone in your community is I'm going to offer a free download, a digital download of my book, the second edition that you were, you know, kindly showing up there. I'm going to offer that, so that will be downloadable onto the process that we've got set up for the book download is you can download it to a Kindle device, you can download it to your computer. You know, there's different ways of doing it. So it's just an easy way to get it onto your devices so that you can look at that.
Lizzie, that is so generous. And I just want to encourage people listening, take her up on that. So we're going to put the link to get the free download of the book, the digital edition of the book, in the show notes. We'll also put them in the places where we're sharing this podcast out so that it's easy to find, but they'll always be integrated to this episode, even if you're listening a year from now. So a link, you'll be able to go put your name and email in and get a free digital download of the entire book, Look Like the Leader You Are. And then we will link up to your website and make sure people know where to find the Elevate Style Club as well. Any closing thoughts?
If anyone does love a hard copy, like a paperback copy, I'll be honest with you, we've had a bit of a disastrous nightmare over the last month with Amazon. I can't even go into the problems we've had, but wherever you are, you might be able to find it on Amazon. You should be able to find it on Amazon, and it's also on Audible. So if you're someone who listens to audiobooks, I personally am a massive Audible listener. So it's available on Amazon in the digital, which you're getting for free anyway. But if you want the paperback or the Audible, it's also available in those formats as well.
And I did get mine on Amazon. So I know, like, it was.
Oh, you did? Oh, well, that's great.
Yes. So I made it through the interwebs.
I've just sort of lost any confidence in them because they've basically ballsed it up.
Oh, and what I love the real honesty of that, because I think, again, a lot of the people listening are business owners, entrepreneurs, they have personal brands. And, it's heartbreaking when you put all of your work into something and you can't get it to people. So I love your generous end run of we're going to make sure that there's a way for people to get their hands on this book. Lizzie, thank you for joining us today. It was absolutely delightful to share your wisdom with this audience. And I hope a lot of people will find their way into your community as well.
Thank you so much for having me. And I really hope that people found that useful and that they take action.
Okay. I hope you got a lot out of this episode and that you are fired up to go and spend a little bit of time in your own wardrobe, taking out the old, right? Some things that are no longer telling the story that you want to be telling, and creating space for maybe some new pieces that you're going to fall in love with and that will really help you carry yourself out into the world with confidence and grace and telegraph exactly the image that you want to the people that you encounter. Reminder, the link to download a free digital copy of Lizzie's book is linked in the show notes, or if you want the actual hard copy, you definitely can get it on Amazon or any place that you buy your books. It's called Look Like the Leader You Are. That's all for today, my friends. Till next time, let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.